Hi everyone, it's Dave and Olive. Thanks for joining us here at Book Blather, where we try to have a little fun while we talk about the books we've read recently to help spread the joy of reading. Today, we're doing the first episode of Sci-Fi Shorts. Welcome back, everyone. Lately, in addition to reading some books, we've been reading a lot of short science fiction, short stories, basically, in different publications like, Clarkesworld and Analog and stuff like that. And so I posed the question in a recent video if people would want to hear us maybe talk about those, some very short videos reviewing the short stories that we've read. And a couple people mentioned they'd watch it, so we figured we'd give it a shot. So this is going to be the first episode. We'll call it Sci-Fi Shorts. We'll just review an issue of science fiction short stories that we read. So the one we're going to read today is Clarkesworld, issue 192. I'm going to try to get this in there because the cover is super cool. All these Clarkesworlds are. So this is issue 192. This came out in September. So we got a couple of issues. So this is just the first one we read. And this is our first experience with Clarkesworld, actually. We tend to collect all these old sci-fi and fantasy magazines, but we've never read this one. I think probably because, the only ones you ever see like in Barnes & Noble are Analog and Analog and Asimov's and the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, usually. This you won't see there because this is basically published free online. But that doesn't mean it's any less prestigious because of that. This has come out, this started back in 2006, so it's been out for a while now. And today, this is considered one of the most prestigious science fiction magazines. They do publish it online for free for anybody that wants to read it that way. But then, of course, they ask for, support in terms of you can buy an e-copy. I think about a month after they publish it online, the print version is available that you can order online. And they also publish it, and you can get a subscription, or they publish anthologies of them, I think, yearly. So any of those things you can buy to help support. So that's just their model. But they're a very prestigious science fiction magazine at this point. They've been nominated for pretty much every major award. They've won the Hugo a few times and a couple others. So we figured we would give it a try. We always like reading stuff in hardcovers, and it supports the magazine. So we just got them in print. So this one has, this is our first time doing this. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge to tell it. We figured we'd give you just a couple sentences about each of the stories to see if it whets your appetite. Kind of hard to talk about short stories without spoiling them, so we'll do our best, but they're going to have to be very brief. So we did have to say we did enjoy all the stories in this issue. The first one was The Slow Deaths of Automobiles by Fiona Moore. And this was a nice little story. This was about set in the future where there's these two friends, and they have the boy has a car, and they're young and they're about to move on with life. And cars have been we've put AI into cars at this point, and it's time to update the car, and the guy is, they're kind of beginning on different life tracks. The guy kind of wants to stay in the past, whereas the girl kind of wants to look to the future. And so as they're debating about updating the car, it's sort of a nice little allegory for their own lives and their relationship, and basically what's the right path. So it was a cute little story. The next one is Border Run, and I have to say that one that was the one story that on the first reading we actually didn't like the story really that much, and but then we were going to do this video, so we were thinking back on it, and we specifically went and reread just that one because we didn't like it, just see if there was something we missed. And I have to say, reading it the second time, I like that story better. And that's one of the benefits of BookTube, because it makes you actually think more deeply about these things you're going to talk about. So what that story was, Border Run by Octavia Cade. And that was about Basically, this poet, I think he was kind of a guest on the ship, which is really like a patrol ship for, these sea, to stop, illegal fishing and others from doing damage to the environment. And so they are the people on the ship are accompanied by some sea creatures that help, that are take very violent measures to stop this illegal activity. And so the story's a lot about the trade-off, because they're ruthless in terms of stopping the activity, but they justify it in terms of that it's just really important to save this ecosystem, to protect this ecosystem. So that's sort of the moral dilemma that's explored in the story. And it was pretty, like I said, the second time around I appreciated it a lot more. The next one is Subsun by Amal Singh. I can't really say much about this. This story's about families and different relationships within a family, and maybe favorites among those relationships, and maybe and what happens when people die in the future, where maybe death doesn't quite mean death. And that's all I can say about that. But that was a really good story too. Okay, and then the next one was Shining Bursa and the Listening Post by Sarah Pauling. And this was a really interesting story that was a little complex. This story was about two very, very advanced alien individuals. They're very different from each other. And one is sort of an alien overlord. One is he's basically just a pretty vicious overlord that just conquers worlds all over the galaxy, I guess. And the other is sort of a confidant that just appears, periodically, and that is I think was like the last survivor, or one of the last remaining of like an ancient, very powerful race. And anyway, has some mysterious abilities, and they have a very complicated relationship, because this sort of just morally bankrupt overlord at times wants to kill this other person, but also is attached to this other person, and relies on this other individual who provides information that they are somehow mysteriously able to obtain that helps the overlord in their endeavors. And but then this other individual also wants something else from the overlord, of course. But I can't say too much more about it, but it was really interesting, and a lot revolves around the relationship between the two, and the complicated feelings that they have. The story very much gave me the feels of a book that I read a couple of years ago called "This Is How You Lose the Time War." If you're interested, the authors are Amal, El-Mohtar, I don't know if I pronounced that right, and Max Gladstone. And this was a book that was really interesting. This was published, 2019. I actually didn't love this book because I found it kind of complex and hard to follow at times, but it was also a really fascinating book. This was about two very advanced creatures that are agents from these two different races or entities that are fighting a war, and they're agents. They're basically soldiers that travel in time to fight this war. And so they never directly engage each other, but they engage each other through the behaviors that they do, and try to counteract, and then start leaving notes to one another. And they develop a relationship through that. So they're enemies, but they develop a very powerful relationship in the course of being enemies. So it was a really interesting story, and it was neat the way it was written. These two authors actually wrote this. They each took a part and wrote back and forth to each other. So I don't know if actually I'd recommend this book. I'd say it's probably worth reading just because it was so original and it's short. But like I said, I didn't love it, but maybe I need to read it again. But anyway, long sidetrack there. But that, so that story in this one, Shining Bursa and the Listening Post, I mean, it was different, but it very much gave me the feel of that story where you had these very powerful alien individuals that have this complicated relationship that are both enemies but also very close, and it was good. It was a good story. And then live update by Letty Prell, and this was a novella in here, or a novelette. I think you call it a novella, and that I really enjoyed that story. That was about a woman who's dying, but her family members are starting a virtual world to live on in after death, and but they're just starting it, so maybe there's some hiccups, and so so there's and of course she's involved with a number of other people that are dying, and goes through this with them, and there was a really good story. I really did enjoy that one, and again I can't say more than that without ruining, but okay, next was Timekeeper's Symphony by Ken Liu. So this was really cool story. So Ken Liu, if you don't know, he's a pretty famous Chinese science fiction writer. He was a translator of this like super hot book, the Three Body Problem. He also has now put out what's it called, the Dynasty. He has his own trilogy out now that's also really hot. I think it's called the Dynasty something. I forget, the Dynasty something. I'll put it up here if I remember. But anyway, so he wrote this story called Timekeeper Symphony, and this was basically an exploration of time and how time progresses very differently for different kinds of creatures, and in different kinds of environments, and how time is there basically is no such thing as absolute time, and how much it really varies depending on the perspective, and even it's so there's a there's a lot of science fiction element to it, but it's also a lot of it is covering basically just even the history of time in our lives, and how we track it, and how that has changed, and how there's really no such thing as definite time. And then that gets expanded, of course, in this science fiction element, other worlds and beings, and really cool. And he even provides links at the end to for some real world links if you want to do further reading on how different time is perceived differently by different creatures, and it was really cool. Really liked that one. Very original. And then the last one was River's Bend by James Salas, and this, I don't know why I'm holding out the book again, and this was that was a very short one, and that was interesting. It was about an author, and he gets a message from somebody else that had read his stuff, and so it's I guess it was epistolary format, because it's just the messages that they're sent back and forth between them, and but this reader is not an ordinary reader, and so he discovers this as they're going back and forth, and it kind of explores like what this reader is trying to discover by doing this reading, and why this reader was particularly drawn to this author. And so it was pretty good. So so that's it. That was Clarkesworld issue 192 from September of 2022. So hopefully we did an okay job with that. Didn't mess it up too much. I thought these were going to be very short, but that probably went a little bit longer than we thought. So let us know how we did it, if we should keep doing these, because we've been into reading these science fiction magazines lately. So we're happy to keep doing them if people like hearing about them. And I think most of these, like especially the Clarkesworld, I mean, it's very easy for you to get it. I mean, it's just like going to buy a novella. You can just go on Amazon or wherever and get it, or you can read it for free online. So Okay, so that's it. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you have any comments, of course, we'd love to hear them, especially if we should keep doing this. And if you don't want to leave anything substantive, you can leave Olive a puppy emoji. She always likes to see those. If you like the video, please hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so that you get notified the next time Olive says it's okay to upload another video. Right, Olive? Yeah. So, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.